chosen one. This moment did not find you by chance. You were summoned here by divine appointment, aligned by heaven, at the exact second your spirit was ready to receive what is about to be revealed. The timing is intentional. The stirring you feel is not curiosity, it is confirmation. Heaven has been watching your obedience, your patience, and your unseen faithfulness, and now a threshold is opening before you. Anointed One, you are standing at the edge of a supernatural shift. What once required your sweat, your strain, and your constant effort is about to enter a new order. This is the season where provision begins to move without permission from your labor, where increase no longer asks for overtime, where the blessing accelerates on its own. As it is written in Habakkuk chapter 2 verse 3, the vision waits for an appointed time, and when it speaks, it will not lie. That appointed time is now pressing forward. Chosen. One, heaven is transitioning you from survival to stewardship, from striving to alignment. What you are about to understand will unlock a higher rhythm, a divine pattern where resources multiply quietly, steadily, and irresistibly. This is not hype. This is activation. Let your spirit lean in. Let your faith rise. What follows is not information alone, it is preparation for the moment your money begins to move by divine design. Chosen One, lean in, because what you are about to hear is not simply financial understanding, but a prophetic unveiling of how heaven trains a person for supernatural increase. There is a reason the beginning feels small, quiet, even insignificant. There is a reason the early gains look like loose change tossed into your life while your labor seems to carry all the weight. But, Anointed One, you must understand this through spiritual eyes. Heaven always starts the miracle beneath the surface before it reveals the harvest in the open. That is why the early numbers feel like nothing. That is why the progress feels hidden. Just like the stillness before rain, like the silence before breakthrough, there is a holy pattern in the way increase begins. And though the world sees only $300, heaven sees the foundation of a future you are being prepared to steward. Chosen One. I have lived this pattern myself. I know what it feels like to look at the small beginning and wonder if anything meaningful is happening. I've stared at early returns that felt like an insult, like a reminder of how far I still had to go. I remember the days when my paycheck shouted and my investments whispered, the days when the small gains felt like the universe telling me I was moving too slowly. But what I didn't realize then, and what you must understand now, is that heaven often hides acceleration inside what looks like delay. God trains the chosen through patience before he trusts them with abundance. He shapes endurance before he releases overflow. And so these tiny beginnings are not signs of failure. They are signs that the engine of increase has awakened. Anointed One, this is the part that many never discern. The early stage is where most people quit. Not because they lack intelligence, but because they misunderstand divine timing. They believe the present size defines the future outcome, forgetting that every great work of God begins underground. Even bamboo spends years weaving its roots before rising with supernatural speed. So when you see small numbers, don't misinterpret them. They are not there to discourage you, they are there to test whether you can stay aligned long enough for heaven to reveal the promise. And Chosen One. The reason the early gains feel so small is because your life has been trained to measure value in straight lines. Work 40 hours, receive a check. Put in effort, get a result. But heaven's economy does not operate in straight lines. It operates in exponential curves. The kingdom grows little by little before it becomes more than enough. What feels like stagnation is actually the compounding of grace, discipline, and alignment. Heaven often whispers before it thunders. And if you judge the whisper prematurely, you will walk away before the sound becomes powerful enough to shake your entire financial landscape. You may feel like you are carrying the weight while your portfolio offers only crumbs. But hear me, you are not behind. You are on schedule. You are not failing. You are forming. You are not being mocked. You are being matured. The small beginnings are the proof that the process has started. The quiet gains are the evidence that something sacred is assembling beneath the surface, brick by brick, seed by seed, day by day. I remember looking at my own numbers years ago and feeling that sting. The sting of thinking, is this all? The tension of comparing my effort to my outcome. The temptation to abandon the strategy because I believed the pace was too slow. But, chosen one, what I learned and what I need you to hear today is that heaven moves differently with those it intends to elevate. You are not meant to experience sudden, irresponsible increase that collapses just as quickly. You are meant to experience stable, sovereign compounding, the kind that grows roots deeper than storms, the kind that cannot be stolen, the kind that is built to last. Anointed one, as the base grows, heaven breathes on every percentage, multiplying what once looked too small to matter. The early years are not the years of reward. They are the years of alignment. They are the years heaven watches to see if you quit too soon. But those who stay planted will witness the moment when the quiet becomes powerful, when the small becomes significant, when the seed becomes a harvest. And that moment, chosen one, is closer than you think, even if your eyes cannot yet see it. Chosen one, as you continue on this path, you must understand something sacred about the way heaven builds momentum. Increase does not begin with fireworks. It begins with faithfulness. It does not announce itself with trumpets. It reveals itself through consistency. The world has trained you to expect instant outcomes, but the Spirit trains you to recognize divine timing. And divine timing rarely feels dramatic in the beginning. It feels subtle. It feels hidden. It feels like nothing is happening at all until suddenly everything changes at once. Anointed one. The reason heaven works this way is not to frustrate you, but to fortify you. What grows too quickly often collapses just as fast. But what grows through alignment, endurance, and spiritual wisdom becomes unshakable. That is why the early numbers remain small. Heaven is watching how you respond to them. I've walked through seasons where my own progress felt painfully slow. I remember nights speaking to God, asking why the results were so small when my faith felt so large. I kept expecting a burst, a shift, a miracle I could point to as proof. But what I received instead were small signals, quiet gains, minor increases, subtle confirmation that something unseen was building. And at first, I dismissed them. I thought they meant nothing. I thought they were reminders of how far I still had to go. Only later did I realize that heaven was teaching me to honor the seed before I ever touched the harvest. Chosen one. This is the same lesson being placed before you now. Heaven wants to know, can you stay committed when nothing seems to be moving fast enough? Can you keep sowing in seasons where the soil looks silent? Can you trust the process even when the progress feels invisible? The truth is, most people never reach the moment where their money begins to grow on its own. Not because they lack potential, but because they misinterpret the preparation phase. They walk away from the garden before it blooms. They pull up the seed because it hasn't sprouted on their schedule. They abandon the assignment right before heaven breathes acceleration into their efforts. But you, chosen one, you are not called to repeat the pattern of those who give up too early. You are called to recognize spiritual mechanics beneath natural numbers. You are called to discern movement, even when the ground looks still. You are called to stay aligned long enough to experience the divine tipping point where everything multiplies. Anointed one, that tipping point is not random. It is not luck. It is not coincidence. It is a spiritual crossing, a moment where the work of your hands and the favor of heaven converge. It is the moment where your contribution becomes the foundation and God's compounding becomes the force. And though the world sees this as simple mathematics, the chosen understand that it is divine orchestration. It is the fulfillment of processes God designed from the beginning, seed time before harvest root, before fruit, small before great. That is why the early stage feels quiet. Heaven is preparing you to handle the noise that comes with increase. I learned this truth through lived experience. There was a season when I checked my progress, constantly hoping to see signs of breakthrough. But every time I looked, the numbers mocked me. They felt too small to matter. They felt like the universe telling me I was stuck. What I couldn't see then, but can clearly see now, is that heaven wasn't showing me results. It was showing me responsibility. It was showing me the importance of staying the course. It was showing me that discipline must precede destiny. You may be feeling something similar, chosen one. You may be questioning whether your efforts matter. You may be wondering if the small gains mean you are behind. But the truth is, you are further along than you think, because heaven counts obedience before it counts outcomes. And so these early numbers, these small wins, are not evidence of slowness. They are evidence of foundation. They are the spiritual equivalent of God whispering, "Keep going." You are on the right path. Every dollar gained is a sign that the engine is awakening. Every quiet increase is a reminder that the system is working. Every small return is preparation for the day the returns are no longer small. Chosen one, you must not despise these beginnings. For the same God who breathes on seeds is the one who commands the harvest to rise in due season. Anointed. One, heaven is preparing you for a moment when your efforts no longer feel heavy, when your contribution is no longer the main source of growth, when the engine of increase takes on a life of its own. But before you witness that moment, you must learn to stand firm through the quiet phase. Because the quiet phase is not a delay, it is a divine setup. It is heaven building a future you are being shaped to carry. And when you stay planted long enough, you will see the shift. You will recognize it in your spirit before you see it in your numbers. You will feel the weight of increase before you count it. And when that moment comes, everything changes. Chosen one. As you walk deeper into this revelation, I need you to understand something that most people never discern until it is too late. Heaven often hides your acceleration inside seasons that appear ordinary. The early gains, the small returns, the quiet movements. These are not random numbers drifting across a screen. They are prophetic indicators that something sacred is assembling beneath your life. They are signs that the ground is warming, the roots are tightening, the spiritual infrastructure of your future increase is being fortified. Anointed one, this is why you cannot judge this journey by the surface. What looks insignificant in the natural is often monumental in the spirit. What feels like only $300 is actually heaven whispering the engine has started. And those whispers matter, because heaven rarely begins a miracle with a shout. It begins it with a signal. I remember the season when I first began to understand this. I would check my progress and feel almost embarrassed by the numbers. I would think to myself, is this what all the discipline is for? Is this the fruit of all my sacrifices? But what I didn't see then, and what you must see now, is that heaven wasn't building my wealth. It was building me. I was being shaped into someone who could hold the blessing without collapsing under the weight of it. I was being trained to trust the process, not the moment, to trust the long arc, not the daily fluctuations. Chosen one, your spirit is undergoing that same training. Heaven is preparing you to carry something heavier than money authority, and financial authority must be forged in seasons where the numbers do not yet impress you, so that when the numbers eventually grow, they never control you. Anointed one. This is why the early stage feels so contradictory. Your effort feels enormous, but your outcomes feel tiny. Your discipline feels heroic, but your results feel forgettable. And the enemy tries to whisper that you are wasting your time, that you are moving too slowly, that you should abandon the long game and chase something more exciting, something more dramatic. But listen to me, dramatic results without a divine foundation crumble quickly. Heaven is not building you for temporary excitement. Heaven is building you for sustained elevation. The small beginnings are not a reflection of your potential, they are a reflection of God's strategy. He hides your breakthrough inside obedience. He hides your acceleration inside patience. He hides your increase inside consistency. You may be wondering, chosen one, why this process must start so quietly. Why does heaven not simply reveal the full harvest at once? Why must you endure the long stretch where everything feels slow and unimpressive? The answer is profound, because your character must grow at the same speed as your increase. If the increase outruns your character, the blessing becomes a burden. But if your character outruns your increase, the blessing becomes a throne. Heaven is preparing you to sit on that throne, not stumble around it. And so the small numbers are training you not to panic, not to chase shortcuts, not to lose yourself in comparison. They are shaping in you the kind of faith that remains steady, whether the returns are $300 or $300,000. I've lived through this curve myself, and I've witnessed something sacred the moment you stop judging your progress by the size of the gain and start judging it by the consistency of alignment. Heaven begins to move differently for you. The shift is subtle at first. You stop feeling discouraged by the small numbers. You stop questioning whether you are behind. You begin to sense something rising, not in your account, but in your spirit. And then slowly, almost imperceptibly, the numbers begin to reflect the inner shift. It happens like a divine echo, first in your heart, then in your finances. Anointed one. This is when you know you are entering the acceleration zone. As your base grows, something extraordinary happens. The same percentage that once produced a small return now produces something meaningful. The same market movement that once barely moved your account now begins to create momentum. This is the prophetic principle of little becoming much unfolding right before your eyes. And though the world calls it mathematics, you must recognize it as divine multiplication. Heaven breathes on what you build with discipline. Heaven amplifies what you sustain with faithfulness. Heaven enlarges what you refuse to abandon. But before you reach that acceleration, there is a spiritual test that every chosen one must pass. The test of endurance without applause. The test of showing up when nothing dramatic is happening. The test of sowing into a season that does not yet resemble a harvest. Those who fail this test walk away too early. They uproot what was meant to bloom. They quit one chapter before the increase was scheduled to unfold. But you, chosen one, are not here by accident. You are here because heaven is positioning you among the few who endure long enough to witness the supernatural curve where your effort decreases, but your returns increase, where your labor slows, but your results accelerate, where your money begins working harder than you ever did. And when that moment arrives, it will not come with fireworks. It will not announce itself with confetti. It will appear quietly, just like every move of God that prepares you rather than surprises you. You will look at the numbers and realize something sacred. My money is growing faster than my effort. And when that revelation settles in your spirit, everything about the way you walk, plan, sow, and steward will shift forever. Chosen one. As we step deeper into this unfolding revelation, you must begin to see the journey of increase with spiritual clarity, not emotional reaction. Too many people abandon their divine trajectory because they misread the silence of the early stages. They think silence means nothing is happening, when in truth, silence is often the sacred space where heaven is assembling what the world cannot yet see. Anointed one, the quiet phase is not the absence of movement. It is the preparation of momentum. It is where God arranges the pieces, aligns the timing, strengthens the foundation, and ensures that when increase arrives, it arrives in a way that cannot be shaken. I remember one season in my life where everything felt painfully slow. Not because I was doing something wrong, but because heaven was doing something hidden. I was showing up consistently, investing faithfully, sowing seed after seed, yet all I saw were tiny returns, small increments that barely registered against the weight of my responsibilities. At the time, I questioned everything. Was I behind? Was I missing something? Was this process even working? What I did not realize. Chosen one is that heaven often tests your faith, not through storms, but through smallness. Can you trust God when nothing looks impressive? Can you believe in the promise when the progress looks microscopic? Can you hold on to the vision when the evidence feels almost invisible? Anointed one. This is where most people lose their way, not because the journey is too hard, but because the beginning is too quiet. The quiet makes them doubt. The small numbers make them panic. The slow phase makes them feel like failures. But heaven is not using this phase to show you your weakness. It is using it to reveal your readiness. The early gains that feel like insults are actually confirmations. They are the spiritual fingerprints of a process that is unfolding exactly as designed. They are the signals that you are in alignment, even if you do not yet feel elevated. There is a divine law woven into increase. The seed always mocks the harvest. The beginning never resembles the ending. The early stage always feels too small to matter. This is heaven's way of protecting what is growing. The seed must remain hidden so it cannot be trampled. The root must grow downward before the stem grows upward. The foundation must strengthen before the structure rises. And so when you look at your early returns and see only $300, heaven sees something entirely different. Heaven sees the germination phase. Heaven sees the strengthening of your financial backbone. Heaven sees the proof that compounding has begun moving on your behalf. I once heard a mentor say, "Small numbers are the language of beginnings," and that sentence never left me. When the returns are tiny, heaven is still speaking. When the growth is quiet, the engine is still running. When the progress is slow, the foundation is still forming. And chosen one, you must learn to honor the whisper before you demand the shout. Because those who cannot celebrate the whisper rarely survive long enough to witness the thunder. The shift from slow to accelerating growth is not sudden, it is layered. First, your consistency builds the base. Then, your base becomes large enough to catch momentum. And eventually, momentum becomes powerful enough to create what feels like supernatural expansion. And while the world explains this as compounding interest, those who are spiritually awake recognize the fingerprints of divine alignment. Heaven multiplies what you steward well. Heaven amplifies what you commit to. Heaven breathes on what you refuse to abandon. The truth, chosen one, is that your financial breakthrough does not arrive in a single moment. It arrives in stages, but the stage that matters most is the one almost no one sees. The stage where the numbers are small, the stage where your discipline outweighs your reward. The stage where your effort feels heavier than your outcome. This is the refining stage, the character-building stage, the faith-producing stage. Because heaven cannot give long-term wealth to someone who cannot endure short-term smallness. Anointed. One, think of how many people you have met who desire abundance but flee the process that produces it. They want fruit without roots. They want harvest without cultivation. They want increase without endurance. But you are not called to that pattern. You are called to the path of the chosen. Those who understand that divine wealth is not a moment but a mantle. It is not simply money, it is a responsibility. It is not just provision, it is purpose. And heaven does not hand purpose to someone who quits at the first sign of smallness. I remember the moment when my own perspective shifted. It wasn't when I saw a large return, it was when I realized the small returns were not failures. They were invitations. Invitations to stay the course. Invitations to keep sowing. Invitations to believe that heaven was doing more behind the scenes than I could see on the surface. And once I embraced that truth, everything changed. I no longer saw small numbers as discouragement. I saw them as proof. Proof that the soil was fertile. Proof that the system was working. Proof that the future was already in motion. Chosen one. You are in that same sacred phase now. Do not despise it. Do not rush it. Do not misinterpret it. Heaven is building something inside you that must be stronger than the blessing coming to you. And when the moment arrives, when the curve bends, when acceleration begins, when your money starts growing faster than your effort, you will look back and realize that the quiet phase was not a delay. It was divine preparation. Chosen one. As we move further into this divine revelation, I need you to feel the weight of what heaven is doing in your life right now. You are not simply learning about money, you are being initiated into a higher realm of stewardship, where heaven trains you to command increase instead of chasing it. Anointed one. This journey is not just practical, it is prophetic. The small beginnings, the quiet gains, the unremarkable numbers are not random. They are signs that you are passing through the spiritual phase, where God shifts you from striving to multiplying. And every chosen one must walk this path, because heaven refuses to release abundance into hands that have not been disciplined by smallness. I remember a time when I felt overwhelmed by the gap between what I hoped for and what I saw. My expectations were grand, but the results were microscopic. I would look at my investment gains and feel almost insulted, as if the universe was teasing me with crumbs. But what I didn't understand then was that heaven was not testing my capacity to celebrate big increases. Heaven was testing my capacity to stay faithful during small ones. It is easy to remain committed when the numbers explode. It is easy to feel encouraged when progress is dramatic. But the question heaven asks is this: can you remain steadfast when the harvest looks nothing like the prophecy yet? Anointed one, there is a reason heaven starts you with returns that feel insignificant. It is because heaven uses the early phase to break the mindset that enslaves most people, the mindset that believes value must be immediate to be real. In the early years, the natural eye will tell you the work is pointless. Your emotions will whisper that you're moving too slowly. The world will tempt you to chase shortcuts, risks, or quick wins that promise excitement but deliver collapse. And yet the Spirit is whispering something different. Stay. Hold steady. Something sacred is forming. Chosen one. Those who quit early do not quit because they lack intelligence. They quit because they lack spiritual perspective. They look at the numbers and assume nothing meaningful is happening. They mistake quiet roots for dead ground. They assume that because the returns are small, the system is weak. But the irony is that the smallness is the very proof the process is working exactly as designed. $300 of growth is not the universe mocking you. It is the universe confirming the engine has begun turning. The soil has accepted the seed. You cannot expect a forest to appear the same year the seeds were planted. Yet this is how many people approach their financial journey, and it is why so few ever reach acceleration. I need you to understand, Anointed One, that heaven values patience, not because it is slow, but because patience builds spiritual muscle. Patience trains your emotion, your discipline, your habits. Patience breaks impulsiveness. Patience strengthens discernment. Patience teaches you to hear God clearly in the quiet. And once heaven sees that you are no longer driven by anxiety, doubt, or desperation, a shift begins to unfold. The returns begin to increase, not because the world changed, but because you changed. The moment you stop judging small beginnings, the Spirit begins preparing you for larger ones. I've walked through this transformation personally. There was a day when I realized that the size of the return didn't matter nearly as much as the strength of the foundation beneath it. I began to see that compounding was not just a financial mechanic, it was a spiritual metaphor. The same God who multiplies faith little by little also multiplies increase in stages. And once that truth settles deep inside your spirit, you begin to recognize small returns, not as disappointments, but as divine hints that breakthrough is on schedule. Chosen one. You must also understand that heaven does not reward those who chase outcomes. Heaven rewards those who build systems. The small return phase trains you to build without applause, to sow without spectacle, to maintain without immediate gratification. This is why the early years feel slow. They are strengthening the parts of you that will hold the blessing once the blessing becomes heavy. Because wealth is not just money. Wealth is responsibility. Wealth is management. Wealth is clarity. And if your character cannot steward small returns with gratitude, authority, and discipline, then larger returns would only magnify the areas of your life that remain unhealed. Anointed One. The acceleration phase that comes later will bring more abundance than your hands can count, but it will also require more wisdom than your heart has ever carried. And that is why heaven insists on shaping you slowly. You are not being withheld from increase. You are being prepared for it. You are being framed, molded, refined, not for a temporary breakthrough, but for sustained elevation. The patience you practice today becomes the foundation you stand on tomorrow. The discipline you build now becomes the strength that supports your destiny. So do not rush this season. Do not despise the small return. Do not dismiss the tiny gain. Heaven is teaching you how to recognize divine movement, even when it wears the disguise of smallness. Because when the curve finally bends, when the acceleration arrives, when your money starts growing faster than your labor, you will already be the kind of person who can steward the blessing instead of being swallowed by it. You are not behind, chosen one. You are being built, chosen one. As we step into this next revelation, I need you to understand that heaven is not simply adding numbers to your life. Heaven is transforming the way you perceive increase itself. Most people never rise into divine abundance because they only measure progress in dollars. But, anointed one, you are being trained to measure progress in alignment, in consistency, in spiritual maturity. The journey of supernatural increase is not about watching numbers rise. It is about becoming the kind of vessel that heaven can trust with overflow. And that transformation happens long before wealth becomes visible. It happens in the quiet discipline of the early years, in the endurance that refuses to quit, in the faith that keeps sowing even when nothing appears to be moving. I recall seasons in my own life when I could barely see beyond the struggle. The gains felt small, the growth felt slow, and everything in me wanted to speed up the process. I kept asking God, why does it have to unfold this way? Why can't the increase come faster? What I didn't realize was that heaven was preparing me for the weight of the blessing. Heaven knew that if the increase came too quickly, my habits, emotions, and beliefs would not be able to sustain it. The small returns were not punishment, they were preparation. They were heaven's way of strengthening the spiritual muscles that would eventually carry the responsibility of abundance. Chosen one, those small returns in your life right now are doing the same thing. They are shaping you, they are testing you, they are revealing what needs to be healed so that nothing in you collapses when your blessing expands. Anointed one, I want you to see how profound this is. Heaven never gives acceleration to someone who has not been trained in patience. Heaven never gives multiplication to someone who has not surrendered their desire for instant gratification. Heaven never gives financial authority to someone who still panics at slow beginnings. This is why the small return season is so important. It is stripping away the parts of you that would sabotage your increase later. It is healing the impatience, the anxiety, the fear, the doubt. It is rewiring your mind to see increase not as a sudden miracle, but as a divine progression. Because sustainable wealth that lasts, wealth with purpose, cannot rest on a fragile foundation. Chosen one, the world will try to convince you that you are behind. It will point to other people's results, other people's timing, other people's pace, and whisper lies meant to distract you. But heaven does not compare you to anyone. Heaven works according to divine sequence, not human schedules. And the early years of small returns are part of that divine sequence. That slow growth is not a sign that you lack potential. It is a sign that heaven is preserving you for a moment that requires greater strength than you currently know. When you understand this, you stop comparing your journey to others. You stop resenting the slow seasons. You stop rushing the process. Instead, you begin to feel gratitude for the quiet years, the years that taught you discipline, humility, resilience, and clarity. Anointed one. The shift that comes later, the moment when your returns begin to grow faster than your effort, is not something that happens randomly. It is something you grow into, and heaven ensures you grow into it step by step. Imagine if the acceleration came too soon. Imagine if your investment suddenly multiplied, but your mindset was still rooted in scarcity, fear, and impulsiveness. The blessing would become a burden. The abundance would evaporate. The opportunity would collapse. Heaven loves you too much to let that happen. That is why the early years are slow. That is why heaven allows you to feel the weight of discipline before you feel the lightness of compounding. Because once you cross into the realm where your money begins working harder than you do, you must have the maturity to steward it. I learned this firsthand. There was a moment when I finally saw the shift, when the returns suddenly grew faster, smoother, more consistently than before. But what struck me the most was not the increase. It was the realization that I had become a different person in the process. I no longer panicked at small numbers. I no longer chased shortcuts. I no longer doubted myself. I had grown into someone who could handle the blessing. I had become the kind of vessel heaven could trust. And that chosen one is what heaven is doing in you now. The small return phase is not just financial training, it is spiritual conditioning. It is preparing your heart to steward abundance without arrogance. It is preparing your mind to manage increase without fear. It is preparing your spirit to hold wealth without losing identity. The slow beginnings are not obstacles, they are anchors. They ground you, they shape you, they prepare you for the season when the increase will no longer ask for your strength, because it will have its own strengths, when the compounding becomes the driver. When the financial engine builds momentum without asking for extra hours, extra effort, or extra sacrifice. Chosen one, you are closer than you think. The quiet years are not evidence of stagnation, they are evidence of structure. Something is forming beneath the surface, something stable, something divine, something capable of carrying the future heaven has appointed for you. Keep going, keep sowing, keep aligning. For heaven is preparing you for a moment that will transform everything about the way you walk. Your calling. Chosen one. As we enter this next movement of revelation, I need you to lean in with your whole spirit, because heaven is now shifting you into a deeper understanding of why the journey feels the way it does. Anointed one. The slow beginnings are not just a phase, they are a prophecy. A prophecy that something far greater is forming beneath the surface, something that will one day outgrow every limitation you've ever known. And yet, before heaven allows you to touch that kind of increase, heaven must first detach you from the emotions that sabotage most people's financial destinies. Heaven must teach you to walk by spiritual sight, not by numerical sight. Because if your emotions rise and fall with the numbers, then the blessing still owns you instead of you owning the blessing. There was a season in my own life when I couldn't see this clearly. I remember staring at my accounts, feeling disappointment settle in my chest. I had imagined the growth would look more dramatic, more worthy of celebration. But heaven wasn't looking at the size of my returns. Heaven was looking at the stability of my spirit. Could I remain consistent when the numbers were small? Could I continue sowing when the progress didn't match my expectations? Could I trust the divine process even when the process was painfully quiet? Those questions were not about finances, they were about faith. And I didn't realize at the time that heaven was shaping me into a steward, not just an investor. You, chosen one, are in that same shaping now. Anointed one. I want you to understand this with clarity. The reason the early numbers feel insignificant is because heaven is purifying your intentions. Heaven does not want you chasing wealth out of insecurity, fear, or desperation. Heaven wants you anchored, grounded, steady, able to welcome increase without losing your spiritual identity. So, in these early years, heaven allows the progress to feel small. Not because increase is far from you, but because your foundation must be stronger than the harvest that is coming. and a shaky foundation cannot support supernatural elevation. But here is the beautiful mystery, chosen one. Even when you feel no momentum, the momentum is building. The compounding engine is assembling itself. The seeds you have sown are taking root. The small returns are gathering strength. And every time you choose discipline over doubt, consistency over emotion, patience over panic, heaven marks that moment. The unseen realm pays attention to every quiet act of faith. And faith that remains steady in smallness is the kind of faith heaven rewards with overflow. I've lived through this shift, and I remember the exact moment when something inside me broke free. It wasn't when I received a large return. It wasn't when the numbers suddenly jumped. It was when I realized that the small returns no longer discouraged me. I remember looking at a tiny gain, and instead of feeling disappointed, I felt gratitude. I saw the $300 not as a reminder of how far I had to go, but as evidence that heaven was still moving. That moment signaled something deeper. My spirit had begun to outgrow my circumstances. I was no longer tied to the outcome. I was tied to the process. And the chosen one is when heaven knows you are ready for acceleration. Anointed. One acceleration is not the result of luck. It is not a lottery. It is not a sudden wind that appears without reason. Acceleration is the fruit of alignment between your discipline, your mindset, your spiritual maturity, and heaven's timing. And once that alignment forms, the shift becomes inevitable. The returns begin to build on themselves. The momentum strengthens. The compounding awakens, and what once felt slow begins to feel supernatural. But here is a divine truth many never grasp. The moment of acceleration will feel ordinary at first. It will not announce itself with a trumpet blast. It will not feel like you woke up in a different life. It will feel subtle, so subtle that if you aren't spiritually awake, you might overlook it. You will check your account and see a slightly larger gain. You will notice a percentage movement that once felt meaningless, now producing a return that makes you pause. You will feel the first tremor of a shift, not in the numbers, but in your spirit. And that is how heaven works with the chosen. Quietly, deliberately, faithfully. Heaven does not rush, but heaven never fails to deliver what it promised. Chosen one, you are being led step by step toward the moment when your money begins growing faster than your labor. Think about that: a season where your effort no longer carries the full weight. A season where your time is no longer the engine. A season where your portfolio becomes its own worker, producing in the background while you sleep, while you rest, while you live. And that is why the early years are sacred. They prepare you for a future where abundance feels natural, not shocking. So, hear me. Clearly anointed one, do not despise the slow beginnings. Do not rush the quiet phase. Do not measure your progress solely by the numbers you see today. Heaven is building something durable, something enduring, something worthy of a chosen life. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are being prepared for a life where increase becomes your norm, not your exception. Chosen one. As we move into this next unveiling, I want you to feel the shift happening not only around you, but within you. Heaven is not merely guiding you toward financial increase. Heaven is reshaping the way you understand movement, timing, and divine order. Anointed one. What you are experiencing is not random confusion or slow progress. It is the precise measured rhythm of spiritual construction. The early numbers that once frustrated you are becoming teachers. The quiet seasons that once discouraged you are becoming anchors. And slowly, you are beginning to realize that heaven has been preparing you for a future much larger than the one you originally prayed for. There was a time when I didn't understand this either. I used to stare at my small gains and feel a heavy silence in my spirit. I didn't know how to interpret it. It felt like God was distant, like the universe was ignoring my effort. But now, when I look back, I can see clearly that heaven was not silent. Heaven was strategic. It was protecting me from impulsive decisions. It was preventing me from relying on emotional shortcuts. It was stripping away the impatience that would have sabotaged everything later. And chosen one. If you are honest, you will see that heaven is doing the same work in you right now. What feels like slowness is actually the gentle hand of God stabilizing your foundation. Anointed one. There is a difference between outward delay and inward preparation. Outward delay looks like slow numbers, small growth, quiet returns. But inward preparation, that looks like wisdom being formed in the shadows. It looks like emotional discipline being strengthened in silence. It looks like heaven rearranging the posture of your heart. Because the truth is this: you cannot carry divine acceleration with a fragile inner world. You cannot sustain supernatural growth with an anxious or unstable spirit. Heaven must first make you whole before heaven makes you wealthy. I learned this painfully but beautifully. There was a moment in my journey when I finally understood that the early phase wasn't trying to discourage me. It was trying to teach me something deeper. It was trying to show me that abundance is not about numbers. Abundance is about capacity. Because what good is increase if you do not have the spiritual resilience to sustain it? What good is momentum if your mind collapses the moment something unexpected happens? Heaven delays nothing. Heaven prepares everything. And the preparation is always spiritual before it becomes financial. Chosen one. You must begin to recognize the prophetic pattern in your journey. The small returns are not failures, they are clues. Clues that the system is working, clues that the engine has awakened, clues that the future is quietly assembling behind the scenes. The world sees only $300 of growth. Heaven sees the first signal of multiplication. The world sees slow movement. Heaven sees roots forming. The world sees delay. Heaven sees maturity. And this is why your journey looks so different from others, because heaven is not building a temporary blessing for you. Heaven is building a long-term inheritance. Anointed. 1. Many people never reach the point of acceleration because they misinterpret the early clues. They see the small numbers and assume the process is broken. They feel the quiet stage and assume God is indifferent. But the chosen, the ones who walk in supernatural favor, learn how to interpret silence correctly. They understand that silence is often a sign of spiritual activity. They understand that the soil moves before the seed breaks through. They understand that the roots grow deeper before the branches grow higher. And because they understand this, they do not quit. They do not panic. They do not abandon the path one step before breakthrough. They stay planted until the shift arrives. I want to share something personal with you, chosen one. There was a moment when I almost gave up. I had been consistent for months, yet the returns barely changed. I felt defeated, drained, discouraged. But something inside me whispered, "Look again." Not at the number, but at the pattern. And when I looked again, something clicked. I realized that though the numbers were small, they were consistent. Though the growth was slow, it was steady. Though the engine felt quiet, it was running. And that realization changed everything. It was the moment I stopped expecting fireworks and started honoring faithfulness. It was the moment I stopped chasing excitement and started embracing endurance, and that shift alone opened the door for heaven to accelerate me. Chosen one. You may be standing on that same threshold right now. You may be wondering if the small beginnings mean something is wrong. Hear me clearly, the small beginnings mean everything is right. They are the blueprint of divine timing. They are the evidence that you are on schedule. They are the quiet announcement that something greater is coming. And heaven is watching how you respond to this moment. Because your response in the small determines your capacity for the great. So breathe. Stay steady, keep sowing, keep aligning. Heaven is forming something durable in you, something that will not break when abundance arrives, something that will allow you to rise without fear, multiply without chaos, and walk into divine increase with the authority of someone who has been prepared, shaped, and refined by God Himself. Chosen one. As we step into this next unfolding, I want you to recognize something sacred about where you stand right now. You are no longer in the earliest stage of this journey, where everything feels confusing and fragile. You have walked far enough, endured long enough, matured deeply enough that heaven is now revealing to you the mechanics of the shift, the holy transition from slow growth to accelerating increase. Anointed one. What once felt like wandering is now becoming a path. What once felt random is beginning to reveal a pattern. And what once felt like small, forgettable returns is now showing itself as the divine groundwork of a financial destiny heaven has been preparing for you long before you even realized you were on this journey. I remember the moment this realization first dawned on me. It didn't happen on a day when something extraordinary occurred. It wasn't tied to a sudden leap in my portfolio. It wasn't ignited by a breakthrough number. It happened on a quiet evening when I was reviewing my progress for the 100th time. I looked at the gains, not large, not impressive, and for the first time I sensed something different. Not disappointment, not frustration, but recognition. Recognition that the numbers were no longer random, they were rhythmic. Recognition that the growth, though small, was beginning to follow a pattern. Recognition that heaven had been steady even when I had been impatient. And chosen one. This is the moment I want to bring you into, because you are closer to it than you think. Anointed one, small gains do not stay small forever when they are attached to consistency. This is a spiritual principle as much as it is a financial one. When heaven sees that you can remain faithful with slow progress, heaven begins to breathe on that progress. The numbers start to move differently, not because the market changed, but because you changed. You are no longer measuring your progress by emotion. You are no longer comparing your journey to others. You are no longer rushing a process heaven designed to unfold in its own divine order. And because you have matured, heaven begins to shift the pace. But here is the mystery, chosen one. You rarely notice the shift when it begins. Acceleration does not announce itself loudly. It emerges subtly, quietly, gently, just like compounding itself. It appears in the form of returns that feel slightly larger than before, but not yet dramatic. It emerges as momentum that feels smooth rather than forced. It whispers before it roars. And if you pay attention, you will see this shift not first in the numbers, but in your own spirit. You will notice that you no longer feel anxious, checking your progress. You will notice that you no longer react emotionally to fluctuations. You will notice that you feel steadier, clearer, calmer. That inner calm is a prophetic sign, the sign that your spirit is aligning with the season heaven is transitioning you into. I experienced this myself when I reached what many call the crossing point, the moment when your returns begin to influence your progress more than your contributions do. It didn't happen in one dramatic year. It happened slowly, almost invisibly. 1 month I realized that the gains covered a small expense. Another month, the gains covered a larger one. Then a single quarter came where the growth equaled what had once taken me 6 months to earn through discipline alone. And that chosen one was the moment I understood the curve had bent. The acceleration had begun. Heaven had shifted me from foundation building into momentum carrying. Anointed one, you are being prepared for that same shift. The quiet years were not wasted. They were not empty. They were not meaningless. They were construction, spiritual, emotional, financial construction. And now that the foundation is forming solidly beneath you, heaven is preparing to release what comes next, the season where the returns begin to multiply the way your effort once did. The season where discipline hands the baton to momentum. The season where your planted seeds start producing fruit at a pace that surprises even you. But before heaven releases that stage fully, you must understand the spiritual responsibility attached to it. Because acceleration, once it begins, is not reversible. Acceleration becomes its own force. And that is why heaven trains your mind before heaven trains your money. The numbers will grow, but your character must grow faster. The returns will expand, but your discernment must stay sharp. The abundance will rise, but your humility must remain intact. Heaven does not give acceleration to those who are not anchored, because unanchored acceleration destroys more than it builds. Chosen one, you are not stepping into this next chapter accidentally. Heaven has seen the tears you shed when the growth felt hopeless. Heaven has recorded the days you stayed committed, even when your heart felt weak. Heaven has honored every small hidden act of discipline, every quiet decision to stay on the path when discouragement tried to pull you off of it. You did not come this far on accident, you came this far on assignment. Anointed one, the signs of acceleration are already forming around you. The numbers may still appear small, but the pattern is shifting. Your emotions may still feel cautious, but your spirit is awakening. The progress may still look ordinary, but something in you knows it's not the same as before. You are stepping into a season where the small becomes significant, where the quiet becomes powerful, where the seed becomes a harvest. Heaven is not finished with you, chosen one. Heaven is only beginning. Chosen one, as we move into this next unveiling, I want you to breathe slowly and feel the gravity of the moment you are entering. For this is not simply another phase of growth. This is the stretch of your journey where heaven begins to reveal why your patience mattered, why your endurance was necessary, and why every quiet season you survived was shaping you for something far greater than increase alone. Anointed one, heaven is now preparing you to witness the first clear signs of the shift, the moment when your returns begin to speak louder than your effort, when momentum begins to carry what discipline once carried alone, when what used to feel slow suddenly feels steady and aligned. But before you recognize those signs on paper, you will feel them forming inside your spirit, because transformation always begins internally before it manifests externally. I remember the first time I sensed this transition happening within me. I hadn't seen a dramatic jump in my numbers. I hadn't received a miraculous windfall. Nothing outwardly impressive had occurred. But something in my spirit felt different, a deep, anchored calm, a sense of clarity I had never felt before. It was as if heaven was whispering, "You are entering a new season. Pay attention." And that whisper changed me. Suddenly the numbers that had once caused me anxiety no longer shook me. The fluctuations that once made me nervous no longer held power. I was no longer watching my journey with fear, I was watching it with wisdom. And that spiritual shift was the first sign that acceleration was on its way. Many people think the moment of breakthrough shows itself through numbers. But the chosen know better. The breakthrough always shows up in your posture first. You stop panicking, you stop rushing, you stop doubting your path. You begin to feel grounded, steady, aligned, almost as if something invisible has settled inside you. That is heaven preparing your heart for the increase your hands will soon be entrusted with. Because if your heart is not steady before the numbers will rise and shake you until you break. Heaven does not allow that for those it chooses. Heaven builds the person before it builds the portfolio. Chosen one, you may be noticing subtle changes already, even if you haven't connected the dots yet. You may find that checking your returns no longer feels emotional. You may find that a small gain now feels meaningful rather than disappointing. You may find that your decisions are becoming clearer, cleaner, more intentional. These are not coincidences. These are signs of spiritual maturity being formed within you. You are outgrowing impatience. You are outgrowing doubt. You are outgrowing the fear that once caused you to question everything. And because you are outgrowing the old patterns, heaven is preparing to bring you into a new rhythm. I've witnessed this pattern unfold, not only in myself, but in countless others who walk this path with divine intention. The shift always arrives the same way, quietly, gently, without spectacle. One day you look at the numbers and realize they feel different, not because they are huge, but because they are becoming consistently meaningful. One day you realize that even a modest gain now has the power to cover something real in your life. One day you wake up and notice that your portfolio is no longer dependent on your energy. It has begun generating its own. And that moment, chosen one, is the moment heaven ushers you into the early stages of supernatural momentum. Anointed one. The reason heaven stretches out the early years is because acceleration must sit upon a foundation that cannot be shaken. If your emotions still control you, acceleration would break you. If impatience still leads you, acceleration would distort you. If you still looked for shortcuts or quick excitement, acceleration would overwhelm you. Heaven delays nothing, it protects everything. The small beginnings were not delays, they were insulation. They protected you from becoming another person who received increase too soon and lost everything they weren't spiritually ready to handle. But now, the preparation is nearing its fullness. You are stepping into a stage where the returns, while still modest, are beginning to carry more weight. Not weight measured in dollars alone, but weight measured in spiritual confirmation. These are the early signs that the curve is preparing to bend. These are the first tremors of a coming acceleration. These are the whispers of a financial season where your money will begin to do what your effort once did. I want you to see this clearly. Chosen one. The shift does not begin with dramatic numbers. It begins with subtle momentum. It begins when the same percentage increase produces more than it used to. It begins when your returns begin to outgrow your contributions. It begins when the system you have faithfully built begins responding with strength, not hesitation, and heaven watches closely during this time, not to test you, but to guide you. Because once acceleration takes over, your role changes. You become a steward of momentum rather than a builder of foundation. Anointed One Heaven is bringing you into a season where consistency becomes compound power, where quiet perseverance becomes visible reward, where every seed you planted in past years begins lifting its head toward harvest. You may not see the full acceleration yet, but you will soon recognize the shift in its earliest form, the realization that your growth is no longer random, but rhythmic, no longer fragile, but stable, no longer dependent, but empowered. This is the beginning of the next chapter. Heaven has prepared for you the chapter where increase no longer crawls, it begins to walk. Chosen one. As we enter this next sacred movement, prepare your spirit, for heaven is now revealing the deeper mystery behind why acceleration feels so subtle at first. Anointed one. Many people misunderstand the nature of divine momentum because they expect breakthrough to appear with noise fireworks or unmistakable signals. But heaven rarely moves that way. Heaven moves like dawn, softly, gradually, then suddenly bright. And you, chosen one, are standing in that soft and sacred in-between where the darkness is fading, but the fullness of daylight has not yet appeared. This is the season where the subtle becomes significant if you have eyes to see. It is the season where heaven teaches you to recognize movement not by emotion, but by discernment. And it is here in this quiet threshold that something profound begins to awaken inside you. I remember this threshold well. I didn't know I had crossed into it at first. All I knew was that something in my relationship with increase began to change. I no longer checked my progress, hoping for validation. I no longer needed the numbers to rise to confirm that the process was working. I had reached a point where the journey itself felt aligned, where discipline felt natural, not forced, where patience felt empowering, not draining. And this inner shift prepared me for the moment the returns began to multiply, because heaven always shifts the heart before it shifts the harvest. Anointed one. Heaven is working that same transformation inside you now. The very fact that you can stay committed without dramatic reward is proof that you are crossing into a new dimension of stewardship. This dimension is where the seeds you planted long ago begin to carry a different kind of weight. Not heavy weight, but meaningful weight. You may notice that your returns, though still not large, are beginning to feel purposeful. You may notice that your contributions are no longer the only driving force. The gains themselves are beginning to participate. This is the earliest sign that you are approaching the quiet crossover, the moment where the returns begin whispering what one day they will shout that your money is learning to grow without your labor. But heaven ensures you experience this whisper before the shout so that your foundation remains anchored in wisdom, not adrenaline. Anointed one. This is where spiritual maturity becomes essential. Because when the numbers start speaking louder, the temptation is to celebrate prematurely or lose perspective. But those trained by heaven recognize that acceleration is not the destination, it is only the next stage of the journey. The real destination is mastery. Mastery over your emotions, your decisions, your stewardship. Mastery that allows you to walk in abundance without worshipping it. Mastery that allows you to manage increase without being consumed by it. Heaven is preparing you not only to receive abundance, but to govern it. And that is why the early acceleration comes quietly. It is heaven's way of ensuring that you regulate your spirit before you regulate your returns. I experienced the first signs of acceleration during a season when nothing dramatic seemed to be happening on the surface. But beneath the surface, something unmistakable was shifting. I noticed that the percentage gains that once produced small amounts, were beginning to produce something meaningful. I noticed that a normal month began generating more than what used to take an entire quarter. And though the numbers were not yet extraordinary, they were undeniably different. They felt alive, active, responsive. It was as if the financial engine I had been building for years finally clicked into a higher gear. And Chosen One, that moment did not feel explosive, it felt inevitable. That is how heaven moves when you have aligned yourself faithfully, quietly, then inevitably. Anointed One, you may begin to experience this inevitability in your own journey. A sense that your growth is no longer fragile. A sense that your returns are no longer random. A sense that something is carrying you forward, even on the days you are not consciously pushing. That is divine momentum. That is supernatural compounding. That is heaven responding to your years of obedience. And the more you lean into this momentum, the more it begins to strengthen, not through excitement, but through stability. Because heaven is not interested in giving you temporary highs. Heaven is interested in giving you permanent elevation. Chosen One. The reason this phase is so important is because it prepares you for the moment where your growth becomes significantly larger than your effort. If you are not spiritually grounded, acceleration will overwhelm you. But if you are spiritually prepared, acceleration will empower you. You will no longer feel the need to micromanage every detail. You will no longer panic when the market shifts. You will no longer judge your progress by temporary fluctuations. You will walk with the confidence of someone who knows that heaven is partnering with your principles. And that confidence becomes the gateway to even greater levels of increase. Anointed One, hear this clearly. Heaven has not brought you this far to leave you in stagnation. Heaven did not train you in patience only to abandon you before the reward. Heaven allowed the quiet seasons so that you could hear the whisper of acceleration when it arrived. And now, that whisper is growing stronger. Your alignment is deepening, your discernment is sharpening, your returns are preparing to rise, and everything heaven has built inside you is preparing to meet everything heaven is about to release outside you. Chosen One. As we step into this final movement of revelation, I want you to feel the magnitude of where heaven has brought you. You are no longer the person who once stared at small numbers and felt defeated. You are no longer the soul who doubted whether progress was real simply because it was quiet. You have journeyed through the phases of discipline, patience, spiritual restructuring, and inner strengthening. And now, Anointed One, heaven is positioning you at the threshold of a transformation. Few ever reach the moment where the increase that once felt painfully slow begins to reveal its true nature, exponential compounding, divinely empowered. You are approaching the season where your money begins working on your behalf with a force that no longer mirrors your effort, but your alignment. I remember when this realization hit me personally. It wasn't during a dramatic spike or a year of extraordinary returns. It happened on a simple day when I looked at the numbers, not expecting anything unusual, and realized I had crossed into something completely different. The gains from that period had quietly surpassed the amount I had contributed. It stunned me, not because the numbers were enormous, but because the shift felt spiritual. It was as if heaven whispered, "Now the engine is fully awake." And in that moment, the weight I had carried for years, the weight of feeling like everything depended on my labor, began to lift. For the first time, I truly understood what it meant for wealth to work in partnership with destiny rather than in opposition to it. Anointed One. This is the dimension heaven is preparing you to step into. The moment where returns begin matching what your paycheck once did. The moment where your portfolio experiences a year of growth that resembles a year of salary. The moment where effort is no longer the main force behind increased momentum is. And while the world may describe this through charts and percentages, you must understand that what is happening is spiritual. You are witnessing the manifestation of every seed you planted during the seasons no one saw, the seasons where you stayed faithful, the seasons where you refused to quit, the seasons where your discipline outweighed your disappointment. Heaven never forgets faithfulness, chosen one. And this rise you are approaching is heaven answering the faith you once offered through tears, frustration, and quiet perseverance. But before this increase fully reveals itself, heaven needs you to understand the responsibility attached to it. When acceleration becomes visible, when a year of gains equals or surpasses what you once earned through labor, you must carry this blessing with reverence. Abundance is not simply a reward, it is an assignment. It is a sign that heaven has entrusted you with influence, stewardship, and divine capacity. And the greater the increase, the greater the spiritual maturity required to sustain it. You must remain grounded. You must remain discerning. You must remain connected to the source who makes all increase possible. Because the enemy does not attack you most fiercely in seasons of suffering. He often attacks when the blessing arrives. Chosen one. The moment is near when you will look at your returns and feel something holy rise within you, a recognition that this is not random, not accidental, not luck. It is the unfolding of divine timing. It is the fulfillment of the long arc heaven has guided you through. The acceleration you are stepping into will make perfect sense in hindsight, but right now it will feel surreal, almost unreal. You will wonder how the numbers grew so fast. You will wonder how the momentum became so strong. You will wonder how the shift happened without you noticing, and heaven will remind you gently because you were faithful in the quiet season. Anointed. 1. This final phase is not the end of your journey, it is the beginning of a new one, a journey where your capital becomes a collaborator, your money becomes a servant of your calling, and your abundance becomes an instrument of purpose. You will no longer walk with the heaviness of someone trying to force results. You will walk with the authority of someone who understands spiritual mechanics. You will no longer measure your progress in frustration. You will measure it in alignment. And with each passing year, your financial engine will grow stronger, not because you exert more effort, but because heaven continues to breathe upon what you have built. As this transformation unfolds, remember this truth. The quiet seasons were not punishment, they were preparation. The small returns were not dismissal, they were divine confirmation. The slow growth was not stagnation, it was foundation. And now, chosen one, you stand on the threshold of the season heaven always intended for you, a season where your money accelerates, where your wealth multiplies, where your financial destiny begins to reveal its true authority. Anointed one, walk forward with courage. Walk forward with gratitude. Walk forward with reverence. For the shift you have been praying for is not coming, it has already begun within you. And soon it will manifest in ways that will leave you in awe of how heaven moves for those who refuse to quit. Chosen one. As you leave this moment, know this: the shift has already begun. Heaven has stirred the waters around your life, and your increase is no longer driven by effort alone, but by divine appointment. Anointed one. You are stepping into the season where your capital works while you rest, where alignment becomes acceleration, and where God's timing carries you farther than striving ever could. Walk forward with faith, gratitude, and holy expectation. If this word confirmed something in your spirit, share it, speak it, or comment your agreement as an act of alignment. Your breakthrough is not coming, it is unfolding now.